let me first of all just do a few words of welcome to say that it was great to see you here today at the University of Dundee and in the main library building as well. I'm Hannah Whaley, I'm the University Librarian and Director of Library and Academic and Cultural Services here at the University of Dundee, and I'm really pleased to see so many people here for what I know will be a lovely and excellent evening of poetry and reading. I wanted to give just a little bit of context by way of welcome for my own connection to the event, and then also the context of being in this building here as well. So I'm a former student of Gail's and of Kirsty's, an alumni of the MLit Writing Practice and Study programme, and therefore I feel entirely part of the community of which I see many people gathered here today that continue to write and connect at events like this and enjoy books being launched by Voyage Out Press. And we're here in this lovely, very colourful room with examples etched on the glass, if you look out to see the book stacks as well, of accomplishments of many of our notable alumni. So we find ourselves tucked away in the corner of what is a busy academic library. We're currently open in our 24/7 period because there's exams on at the moment. We're in the winter exam diet, and that means that we're seeing about 5,200 students a day through the door, and about 1,000 at a time. And I realise that starting a poetry reading with stats and numbers isn't very normal to do, but I just wanted to emphasise how much learning happens in this building and in this context, and the sort of social nature of that, the way that students come together to learn. It's always quite grounding to think of how much endeavour and hope is happening any one time in a busy library like this, and therefore it seems like a lovely context then for us to launch a new book into the world by coming together in this way, and to be invited into more reflections within the book as well.
What a pleasure it is to be gathered together here with so many old and new friends to welcome one of Scotland's really important poets here for the launch of his beautiful collection, The Silver of Old Mirrors. I feel like I barely need to introduce Rory because his contribution to Scottish literature is immense. You know, as an academic, as a scholar, as he said today, there have been countless chapters, essays, books that have been written, all of which have given an enormous insight to the literature that we already have here in Scotland to enjoy. But it's as a poet that we welcome Rory here today. And I'm happy to say it's his third visit to Dundee because he's been here to read from his work as part of our Literary Salon series and also as part of our Writers' Read series. So this is the third visit. But we have someone with us who's just made so many contributions to the way all of us have come to read and think about words and books. Someone who's been on the panel of the Booker Committee, someone who was chair of Scottish Books Trust, and who was general editor of the Canongate Classics series. In fact, I was speaking to my husband, David, earlier today, and he said, without Rory Watson, that series never would have happened. And I feel that that's when I got to know you personally, through my husband, who was then working at Canongate, when this wonderful series of re-energising the Scottish canon was set in motion. So I kind of heard about Rory through my husband that way, and then we became friends and became kind of colleagues together as we discussed creative writing as a discipline over the years. But yes, we are here to celebrate this wonderful collection that Gail Lowe and I have published as part of our Imagine Spaces, the Voyage Out Press journey. And this represents our second collection of poems, and Gail's standing resolutely behind that camera, but I think you should come to the front too, Gail, and just say a couple of words about what it is to bring an established poet into the fold of the Voyage Out Press. I always have to persuade Gail to do that, to step up from behind the camera. But here she is. And this book would not have looked as beautiful and wonderful as it does were it not for Gail's ideals from the beginning, that it was to be a really beautiful work of art in its own right, with beautiful paper, the layout, the organisation, the use of photography. We have Fraser Morrison to thank for that.
Yes.
And
my daughter, who designed the book in collaboration with me and also Rory.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's publishing a book and allows me to inhabit it much more than just being a reader. In some ways, you have to think about the collection as a whole, you have to inhabit the poems, and then you have to actually feel your way into the soul of the actual writing itself in order to actually translate that into a book as a material object. Because my own background was in book history, I'm really interested in how the book is a material object, not simply, if you like, the content. So the whole purpose with the Voyage Out, both with Jim Stewart's collection as well as with Rory's collection, is how to feel your way into something that you can, in some ways, enhance rather than displace in the actual
Which
book
is what
itself.
you've totally done, because it's so beautiful. And I don't have any of this kind of vision myself. It's all over to Gail and Sean. But we worked so happily with Rory in bringing this collection to bear. And here we are to celebrate it tonight. And with that, enough from us.
Yes.
And here's our wonderful chair for the evening, another of our fantastic ex-students. Ian is going to be in conversation with Rory about this collection. Welcome all. Welcome Rory, welcome Ian. Over to a great night.
My name is Ian Hume, and I'm the former poetry review editor of Dura. And it's my great pleasure to join Roderick Watson, Rory, if you don't mind me calling you Rory, in conversation about his new collection, and for Rory to read a few of those poems from the collection. So welcome to the library, Rory. And if I just might provide an overview about this new collection, The Silver of Old Mirrors. Seamus Heaney, and I'll invoke the Seamus. Seamus Heaney, in an interview with Andrew O'Hagan for the Scotsman newspaper in 2010, said, "Poetry is always slightly mysterious, and you wonder what your relationship to it is." I get a sense of this kind of mysterious action in Roderick Watson's new collection, The Silver of Old Mirrors, that speaks of love and respect for persons and things in the most evocative of ways. Poems that move deftly from the ordinary to the extraordinary, and how they infuse thoughts about everyday matters with feelings and create something of a dialectic with its audience, its readers, about how we live now. Sometimes with an ethereal quietness and lyricism, other times rocking to amplified thunder, and that's a quotation from In the Park. It is preceded by two full collections, The True History of the Walls, 1976, and Into the Blue Wavelengths, 2004, that have explored themes of culture and identity through fond remembrances triggered by places, old photographs, conversations with the dead, especially poets, and generally the existential nature of human experience, something that the present collection does too. But there are intimations of mortality, perhaps, in these new poems, such as in Nolly Temeri and Paddling in the Sticks, that perhaps mark out this collection as different from the others. So Rory, I think just one question or general question to float before you do some readings, if that's possible. Just, would you say that writing is for you a mysterious encounter rather than a conscious act?
Yeah, I often don't. We were talking to students earlier in a seminar, and I was explaining that I'm not often sure what the poem is saying, where the poem is going, what it's about. So at some point you have to figure out what it is that's moved you, what it is you're trying to say. And I was saying that at some point when you're working, you have to let the poem speak to you. You have to listen to what the poem is trying to tell you. So it's for me, it's a process of trying to get into the daylight something that I don't yet know what it's going to be until it's there. So I think it's genuinely odd. A phrase will catch your attention, something will strike your imagination, and you try to put that together with other things that you've experienced or known or remember, and gradually build a picture out of it, really. And you have to work to find out what that picture is. The process of revision and changing and so on is a question of bringing it into the light. So I think that's profoundly the case. Anytime I've tried to write a poem about something, it doesn't work so well. You editorialise, you have a message to deliver or whatever, and that doesn't work so well. So yes, I think it is, a little mysterious. The rest of it is sweat. Yes. The rest of it is editing and cutting and mucking about with it, really.
Especially that bringing it into the daylight, you know, that very conscious act, you know, of trying to do that. Well, would you say that perhaps when you're writing, you're writing for yourself in that respect, or you're writing for, or do you have an audience in mind, or does it just start off as a personal thing?
For me, it's a personal thing. I enjoy the finished artifact, really. That's good. I quite like reading in public. That's an expressive thing that I enjoy doing. But I'm not thinking of an audience, really, at all. Really. Talking to the students earlier, and I was saying the original title of this collection was An Ordinary Day. One of the poems in it's called An Ordinary Day, which I thought was kind of witty. It was Gail who decided that the proper title was The Silver of Old Mirrors. It's a much better title. And I'm grateful to her for that. But the mirrors, one of the themes running through the book is mirrors and dreams. Dreams and mirrors and photographs as of ways of looking at ourselves, or ways of finding out who we are. So you'll hear that popping up from time to time. I'm going to start with In the Park, I think. I'm lying on my back in the grass as the sun sets on a park in France. The stage is rocking to amplified thunder, and the rooks are flying home. Down here it's dark because twilight has come, though the sky is clear as the birds return, roosting in trees all around us. It's like that Magritte painting, The Empire of Light, bathed in thunder and shadow as the music booms and the trees creak to the never-ending conference of the rooks. The stage in the distance is all smoke and glare. Dogs and children float on waves of sound. A helicopter beats overhead like some war movie, and miles above, a contrail shines, a golden seam, stitching the world with the sun's last rays. People are always going somewhere, but down here, we're dancing in rings or lying in the scent of grass. Down here, the rooks make their own music, stacked and ranked in the shadow of the trees. In this particular dusk, it all seems to fit. The heat of the day just past, the rooks tracking in the air, the racket in the branches, the failing glow, the weight and joy of the spinning place, the drums and the bass. A sudden delight at the end of it all. Empire of Light. That was a park in France. Yes. One of the themes of True History in the Walls was history. And this is a kind of history poem, I suppose. I live in Riverside in Stirling, where the river does a big loop. We live in a street that runs from one end of the river to the other end of the river. The Forth in Stirling is tidal, so the river occasionally runs backwards. I mean, if that's not a gift to a poet, I don't know what. The river runs backwards. From our garden, you see Stirling Castle, and we remember the Battle of Stirling Bridge with Wallace and the Battle of Bannockburn with Bruce. So we're surrounded by history. Across the river from us is Cambus Kenneth Abbey, where a lot of dead people fetched up after the Battle of Bannockburn, and bodies and armour were laid out there. So we're surrounded by history. This is about living in history, trying to live in history, and yet it's impossible, past and present. We can't get away from it, but it's difficult. Old news. It is a little epigraph. The Forth at Stirling, the shores of the Mediterranean, November 2015. That was, sorry, November 2015, yes, that was 10 years ago. You may remember refugees, men, women and children from Syria, crossing to Italy, crossing the Mediterranean, being washed up on the beaches. That's really what there's a reference to. There were shocking photographs of dead children on the beaches in Italy. Our street is wide and the river runs around it. We live in the loop and watch the tide flowing upstream as the year draws in. There was a harbour here, now just timbers in the mud. I put the newspapers out each week and lock the door. The castle hall is golden on the hill. Beneath its walls, Sir Hugh de Cressingham was skinned to make a sword belt for the nation's hero. There were brickworks here not so long ago, and a ferry to the peaceful abbey where armies came to bleed and struggle on the shore. Our lines and borders have moved elsewhere. Everything sinks and rises under our feet, but nothing changes. Digging in the garden the other day, a perfect brick turned up, back again. Like those drowned bodies on another beach, not to be denied on television, helplessly seen and far away. In this low light, our shadows reach across to the other bank. They seem friendly, but do not follow us when we turn aside. We kind of live with these things. So, last image here. This is dreams. I'm dreaming a lot these days. Sadly, I'm dreaming of teaching a lot this time. I retired years ago, but it's fun. And so some of the dreams, some of these poems are about dreams, I suppose. And I made a conflation between where we go when we dream and the classical underworld. Laurie Anderson has a wonderful passage in one of her albums, Heart of a Dog. What are days for? To wake us up, to put between the endless nights. What are nights for? To fall through time into another world. And I'm thinking that's dreams. Really beautiful, beautiful lines. Paddling in the sticks. I was visiting last night and talking with dead friends about the time I was too late to hold my father's hand on his last day. It seems we walk apart every night, hanging out with the old crew beside the river, according to the Greeks. Like being down in the cellar where I used to scare my sister, creepy noises among old furniture and bulging cardboard boxes with God knows what inside them, like the back of your mind. Damp, forgotten storage. It's familiar in the underworld, an escape. We're there often enough when all is said and done, where what is said and done comes around again, wearing different clothes. And you say, I know this place, I've been here before, and I always knew it, but only find my way by accident. And who were you again? There are many of us here on the Ferny bank, waving at each other, until another day takes us back to life on a brighter shore, and thankfully fading memories of whatever it was that we said and did among the asphodels. You remember the underworld as fields of asphodel where the dead wander. Okay. This is Noli Timeri. Noli Timeri is supposed to be Seamus Heaney's last words. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. Noli Timeri. So this is it, and here we all are. I wake up thinking of that man, the breadth and depth of him, and the message he left at the border, going to the big old place where we walk with everyone. Up on Skye, my mother turns another card, looking out to Ben Scriel in her long game of patience. She is waiting for the court cards, the knaves and queens. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes not. Like the historical novels in her favourite bookcase by the window, where they rest under a film of dust as the island evening draws to a close and the faces turn up one by one. Sisters and brothers, the church choir, the old folks in the cold water kitchen, the children, and then the great-grandchildren that neither she nor I will see as the last lines turn out in a turn of the cards. On the shore below, Knock Castle is fading into the turf and boulders of a wholly natural world. It is time alone at work, nothing else. So much to say unsaid. There's a gate back down the road with two boys in shorts and ragged jerseys guddling heedless in weed-rich ditches. One of them was me. I don't know if you know how float glass is made, plate glass, these old, lovely old mirrors with beveled edges and very thick glass. You put your finger on the glass and the reflection is way beyond the finger. It tells you how deep the glass is. It's molten glass is flowed out on a bed of molten tin is how it was made. So that features here. The silver of old mirrors. The silver of old mirrors, slightly foxed, with float glass made on a molten pool of tin, holds us tightly locked in its cool embrace. Touch your finger to the surface and reach, it will always be half an inch away from such likeness and always other to the one you are. This is as close as we get, brightly boxed in the moment, the mahogany frame, the finger, your face, so much old furniture to keep, to remember, to lose. So this is what I'm thinking in the freezing gloom of a storehouse in Auchterarder as we wander past dressing tables and sepulchral wardrobes with an air of mothballs and missing clothes. I see anew the lines around your eyes, faintly laced, and my own pale face, and want to reach and touch the reflection of your cheek, to recall its silver ghost, that time in Savannah, the darkened room, the molten pool of tin.
I love all the poems, but that one in particular, I think because of what it conjures up for me, that the notion of silver, you know, what silver suggests, and also what it communicates, you know, in terms of more about the process or the photographic process. It makes me think about, in a personal sense, but maybe think about Fox Talbot and that the silver nitrate or the paper dipped in silver nitrate to create that sort of lightly active paper, and that's recording.
Yeah.
And certainly there's an echo of that later, and at the end poem at the bridge, with respect to you recording that moment of meeting your wife, your partner, you know, of that and at the same time under the epigraph of, you know, of the fish, the river roar and the salmon leap, you know, that notion of infinity or what have you is there below your feet or below the bridge, you know. So it's quite. So it's lovely in that respect. It leads me elsewhere in the connection, in the
silver connection was conscious. I mean, I should read that poem probably.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
This is at the bridge 25. Yes, you've saved me the trouble. These days I feel I should explain that this is old-fashioned photography with a shutter speed and developing silver salts and developing photographs, as opposed to entirely digital stuff. This is, if you know the Burn at Edsel, it's available for study groups. I've been there on a number of occasions. So this is actually set in the Burn, and the Esk there is a famous salmon river.
Is it the falls of, is it Fuke?
Or
is it not there?
I'm sorry, yes, sorry, I'm in the wrong poem altogether, different poem. Yes, this is about the river Fuke, yes, in Deeside, yeah. At the bridge. She's wearing a green polo shirt and that leather jacket with her hair pinned up, a shy fringe and a wide smile, 15 years old, leaning on an old stone wall by the cold waters at the Brigg of Fuch, where salmon leap. I met her last week. She is going to be the light of my life. The shirt is her father's. She wears it because she loves him, although he does not live at home anymore. That parting has left its mark. The leather jacket was impossibly cool back then, on slender, high-set, boyish shoulders. Her ear is caressed by a tendril of blonde hair. I think my chest is going to explode with tenderness. I am, you could say, pretty smitten at 17, possessed even by her cheekbones and those hazel eyes, lightly flecked in the afternoon sunshine, with the rest of our long day, 2 children and 3 grandchildren yet to come. What this power is, I cannot say. Drawn by light in a little room. Anyway, it was 100th of a second in the year 1960, quick as the click of a shutter opening and closing on both our lives. The silver salts that pierced the heart, out of the dark, into the light, back to the dark again. The rivers roar, the salmon falls, the green shirt she wore.
Lovely, thank you.
You finished now?
I think we'll have 2 more minutes of chat and then
I really love that poem because it's of them all. I think it's the one that has to be read at the end.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of it, I feel it can be read out of sequence, but this one, in order to provide that luminous overview, you know, for it all to come together, you know, that confluence of ideas and thinking in that river moment. I think it's just essential that I think the reader must read that at the end, you know.
Remember, camera is Italian for little room, which is what the original old cameras were. So that's, you know, that's another gift, really.
Yes,
yeah, it's a gift.
Lovely.
We can't not use it.
No. I just wonder about questions. Would you mind taking 1 or 2 questions from the audience?
If you like, sure. Yeah.
Hi. Would anyone like to ask Rory a question about the poems he's read? Or yes?
Hi, Rory. I wondered how you feel about your own self when you complete a project like this collection. Do you feel that you have changed somehow, or do you have any thoughts about how completing a collection like this might change you or make you learn something about yourself?
Well, I think the act of writing in the first place is just that. You learn a lot. And some poem, I mean, there are poems here that were written quite a while ago too, so there's a sense in which it's a fairly large spread of time over a period of thought and work. I think you see themes emerging in the course, whatever it is I said individual poems, you're trying to figure out what it is that you're trying to say. In the succession of writing, you begin to see common themes. So that begins to become apparent to you. It's my experience, I sometimes really only fully understand a poem years after I've written it. And you know, sometimes rather surprisingly.
So you have little revelations along the way.
I think, like I say, it is slightly mysterious, so it doesn't seem so unlikely that you will suddenly see that there was something behind that poem that you didn't know at the time, or you get older and you see it in a different light. So that does happen, I think. Yeah.
Was there anything about this particular collection?
Yes, this.
Because it seems that some, you know, the themes that you.
Gail and Kirsty acted as gave really valuable editorial insight here, because we left some poems out in the submission that I gave them because they saw themes in it, and I think they were right. And a friend of mine who's since seen the poem, the collection, wrote back and said, "You've become much more intimate. This is more intimate than some of your other writing." And I think that's certainly the case. I mean, I'm getting older apart from anything else, so there's a sense in which there's a certain reflective process going on. And I think that's certainly the case. Yeah.
Do you think that perhaps, well, you know, has the fact that you're not working anymore, although you said you still think about teaching, that you're freed up in that respect, has liberated your thinking, your sensibilities in that respect, or allowed you to be much more?
No, I don't think so. I enjoyed teaching enormously. I found it creative, I found it stimulating, I found working with students super fun. And I used to do creative writing classes at Stirling too, and that was wonderful. I mean, it was really exciting. So I miss that quite a lot. But I don't write much, and I've got 3 slim collections in the course of however many years we won't go into. And I accept that. I write from time to time. I'll get a burst of writing, and I'll have 2 or 3 poems there, and then a long time will go by and nothing happens. And you know, because I'm working, I have a regular job. I'm lucky. I don't have to write to make a living, you know, which is a whole different thing. So it gives me the time to let things settle and sink in. So, yeah.
Rory, can I ask, by way of concluding this part of the evening, a reading, if you were to read the very last poem in the collection?
Coda.
Please.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, that is what that's about.
I think it's quite amazing the word coda, the fact that you've chosen coda, musical, you know.
Yes.
Is that there's a lot of music.
Yes. Yeah, this is a dream poem, basically. Yeah. And this actually does speak to something. When I was saying to students earlier this afternoon, in teaching, I really believe that prose as well, literature has to be heard. At a conference in Germany once, when I was talking about what I was talking about, and I was quoting, and a German professor came up to me and said, "You quote an awful lot. You quote a lot." And I thought, of course I'm quoting. You know, a certain academic will spend an entire hour talking about a work of art and never quote it once. You know, please, spare us. So I do believe that poetry should be heard, and there's something happens in live contact that's special about that, and I guess that's what this is about. Coda. And it's, like I say, it's a dream thing. I was talking again last night, discussing poetry and making meaning out of music, music out of meaning, with someone telling me about bowel cancer for some reason, and Francis Bacon and the terror of the flesh. Where did that come from? But it made sense. The words, the dream, the unfolding lines of the poem, and that stillness in the room, when words are read aloud and something is conjured up between us all, as the Greeks say, when the god descends. Otherwise we are just stuff.
sharing. We have been in that stillness, haven't we not, tonight? We've been in a kind of magical place of mirrors and the underworld, of a kind of waking dream. It's been so beautiful. I gave this collection to my sister, who's an artist. She sat down, it was an early Christmas present. She sat down and she read it in one sitting and emerged in floods of tears. And I must say, I found this evening to be intensely moving. Such a gift to have a writer read their work in real time, and such a gift to have this writer, because what a beautiful reading that was. Rory, thank you again so
Thank you
much.
very much.
We've got books for sale at the back. We have festive cocktails. We invite you, because I know maybe some people felt a wee bit shy about asking questions. Rory's going to be signing at the back of the room. Take your questions with you and have him sign one or more copies of this beautiful book, and enter again into that beautiful still space that we've all enjoyed this evening. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you again to Ian and to Roderick Watson. Roderick Watson, not Rory Watson.